You're watching Good on Paper, a bookish channel. All right, hi everyone.
Hi guys.
Hey. So today we are here with a very special guest, and this is actually our first guest. So I'm super excited and super honored that she agreed to be our first guest. But we have Drew Taylor, who is a rom-com author who writes amazing rom-coms. And oh my gosh, I just finished your book last night, but I didn't say so on Goodreads. It didn't actually happen then. I just realized that. Okay, anyway. Yeah, I read The Designated Friend because I was like, this is gonna be a great way for me to
that's
finally read
perfect
these
timing.
books. Right?
Yeah.
I was like, when we interview authors, I'll read their books and it will be like a great way to get through my TBR. And then, but if you don't post on Goodreads that you finished it, it didn't happen.
I'm guilty of that, 100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that's fair. That's like such perfect timing though that you just finished it last night.
I did. I was like,
so
interviews on Tuesday, gotta finish this book.
Probably wise to have at least read one book of the author we're going to be interviewing.
Well, I don't know though, because then you might have like questions. Like if you don't know, you know what I mean? Like maybe one of us has read it, but the other one hasn't.
Yeah,
You know, you
that's
get both
true.
perspectives
Yeah.
from the new audience, from the fan base. Like
Yeah. That's
yeah.
fair.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
let's see, Rachel, I know you've read The Politics of Christmas. Jenny, have you read that one?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so we have.
I was
We're
gonna say
good.
maybe it was like y'all read like the two different ones.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to ask you, Drew, because I am not a rom-com writer. I don't even really read them a lot, but I know Rachel is a rom-com writer and reader. Is what draws you to that genre, like both as a writer and a reader?
Well, let's start as a writer because I'll be honest, I did not read a lot of rom-coms. Like I wasn't a heavy rom-com reader either before I started writing them. As I started writing one, I was like, I should probably read more of the genre if I want to have any smidge of success. So I did. What drew me to it as a writer, though, was the simple fact that I was in the middle of writing a heavy, dark, dystopian, a lot of dark themes, obviously geared towards redemption in the end. Not going to make the mistake the Divergent series did. And so I was writing that, and COVID hit, and I just couldn't write it anymore because where I was living at the time in South Mississippi, we didn't have to do a lot of the lockdowns and a lot of the masking and a lot of just all of the procedures that went with COVID. And I lived out in the woods. So, I mean, I had a lot of freedom to just get outside and do whatever I wanted. But I'm also really engaged in the news cycle. And so watching the news cycle a lot while everything was happening was just so dark and just weighing heavy on my soul. And then I was writing, or not writing, I was reading a book by Leah Bruner. I think it was Running Mate, was her first one. I know.
Okay.
Me too. And I had picked it up. I don't know how I really don't remember how I came across it, but I did. And I mean, I had just started a Bookstagram, and it was so light and funny and made me laugh. And I was just like, this is refreshing to the soul. I want to write something like this that's going to make people laugh and smile and give them a break from everything happening right now. And that's how I started getting the idea for The Politics of Christmas. And I knew I still wanted politics slightly involved because I love politics. I'm that weirdo. But I was like, it can't be too heavy, but a little influential in it. And, I had plans already for the second book. And I was like, that one will be heavier with the lyrics and just still something to make people smile and laugh. And I also knew that as a Christian, I wanted to make sure I had Christian themes embedded in the book, even if it wasn't um, like, in your face. Every chapter they're praying, every chapter they're giving glory to God, because in real life I don't pray as much as I should. And
Same.
I forget to give glory to God all the time
Mm-hmm.
for things that happen. And that's real. And I wanted my characters to portray that, um, to not be perfect. And, I just wanted it to be something people could relate to. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's why I started writing it. And then as I read more, I just fell in love with witty banter and romance. I love romance. I've always loved
Yeah.
romance since I was a little girl. It's the idea of finding your best friend and your lover all in one.
Mm-hmm.
It's just exciting. And
Mm-hmm.
the thrill of a new relationship, or even the thrill of, a new relationship with someone you've known forever, with like the
Mm-hmm.
designated friend. Like, I love those themes. And yeah, it was a really long-winded answer, but that's kind of my journey, how I got to reading and writing them.
That's a good answer. Not too long at all.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I really love that. I relate to so much of what you said. I mean, I was just talking to someone the other day about like Hallmark movies,
Mm-hmm.
and they were like, "Oh, I can't do Hallmark movies because they're too happy or like
Mm.
insipid for me or whatever." And I said,
Mhm.
I used to feel the same way, but then like after that whole 2020, like I was working in a
Mm.
nursing home, I saw a lot,
Oh yeah.
and it really changed me. And because I've seen so much tragedy, like in real life, it's just kind of like you don't want to deal with
Mm.
that anymore. And like even with
Yeah.
dystopian, because like we've actually experienced dystopia now, it's kind of like,
Yeah.
I mean, like I don't think I want to read about one. I'm already living in one. You know? So
I
I like
agree.
Hallmark now. I like cozy
Yeah.
stuff. I like stuff like that. And my writing has changed too. My writing has gotten a lot more uplifting because I'm like, I
Mm-hmm.
just can't add to that all that evil and darkness
Yeah.
that's in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's totally a place for all of that. There's totally a place for
Mm-hmm.
dystopian, totally a place where, like, I still have that
Yeah.
lip. I plan to finish it one day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's a lot of light and uplifting
Mm.
that can come from that once you trudge through the darkness, which is also
Yeah.
real life.
Yeah.
And I forgot where I was going with that, but yeah, like there is a place for everything. But like the
Mm-hmm.
happiness, like the too cheesy, the too giddy, the too giggly,
Mm.
the kind of romance like on Hallmark that makes you just want to swoon and like scream into your pillow with giddiness over what's happening on the
Mm-hmm.
screen or on the page because it's so darn sweet. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's not real life. Who knows? I don't know. I think it can be.
Yeah.
But that feeling that you get, it's just pure bliss. Like,
Yeah.
and it's good for the soul. And it's good to smile and to grin and to
Mm.
feel that giddiness because it's just so uplifting. And there's nothing wrong with liking that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the nice thing about rom-com books that Hallmark doesn't always do is that rom-com books tend to add more humor, and Hallmark doesn't always have a lot of it. So the banter in the rom-com books just gets me every time. That's my favorite. I'm like, okay, yeah, I like this.
Yes, I
Yeah.
agree. Banter is really hard to write.
It is. To make it sound authentic and like natural, it is. Yeah. It usually
It's
takes me a few tries.
it's the kind of stuff you go in and you add after you've
Yeah.
written the
Mm-hmm.
story. You go
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, oh, okay, let's just scrap out every piece of dialogue I wrote this
Yeah.
time and rewrite it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 100%.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's interesting because like I said, I don't write rom-coms, so
Mm.
I just assume people who write rom-coms are naturally funny and they just like
Mm.
naturally think of these things off the top of their heads. But maybe not. Maybe it's like practice, just like everything else, and drafting, like
Yeah.
several drafts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I'm not a what's the word? Yeah, I'm bad with words when I talk. Um, I'm not the kind of person who always has a joke ready to
Mm,
plug into a conversation, or the kind of person who always has a witty comeback. I think of
mm.
them an hour later after I've left the conversation. And when I think of them, I jot them down and I'm like, okay, that's
That's
some
good.
good fodder for a book one day.
Yeah.
I can be funny and witty. It just takes time to catch up with me. I'm not quick on my feet.
I identify with that so much. Later, I'm like, I could have said that. I could have said that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Overthinking, rethinking through entire conversations all the
Yeah.
time.
hmm
3 a.m.
Yep. I have the only witty conversations I have are the ones in my daydreams, and they're always perfect, but the ones in real life never go that way.
I agree and reflect.
The secret is out. This is where writer trade secrets come from. It's just people who we're socially awkward and we think of these
Mm,
things later and we're like, well, I got to use this. And that's how writers are born.
Pretty much.
pretty much, yeah.
So I'm also really curious about you grew up in the South. So what's that like? How does that shape your identity, your books? And now
Mm.
you've moved to Alaska. So like what like is that like a huge culture shock? Like what's going on with that?
Mm.
Oh, I love talking about this. Okay. So, yeah, I grew up in South Mississippi, like let's say 30-ish minutes from the coast.
No way, where?
It's a little town called Poplarville. So it's
Okay.
about 20 minutes maybe out from Gulfport, Mississippi,
Go for it.
and then
Yeah.
towards the Biloxi area.
Yeah, Biloxi. Okay, I have family there.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
awesome.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's where I grew up. Love the beach, love the sunshine.
Mm.
I used to say I hate the heat, but now I have to say I love the heat because man, I miss it. Oh, I miss it. But growing up in the South was, I used to hate it. I used to say, I want to move to a big city and live a city girl life
Mm.
and all of this when I was younger. Tired of everyone knowing me and knowing my business, small
Mm.
town. Um, and I wanted to get out of there. I went to college in Jackson, Mississippi. Well, not in, it's
Mm.
in Clinton, but it's close to Jackson. And dormed there for 2 years and decided city was not going to be it
Mm.
for me. I much preferred being out in the woods in the middle of nowhere.
Mm. Mhm.
um, yeah, with just the opportunity to get outside and not have people
Mhm.
around me. And so I loved it. I loved growing up where I did in a small town in the South. The South is very hospitable. It's a very welcoming, warming place. Um, it gets a lot of bad rap, I think, for like, oh, you're just all like redneck hillbillies who don't know
Mm.
how to socialize with people, or I don't know, a lot of like bad stereotypes. Every place has its
Yeah.
stereotypes, so but it's everyone is so friendly, and I would never like trade that, and I will never say like I'm embarrassed of where I grew up because I love it.
Yeah.
The politics of Christmas definitely has a lot of nods to my hometown. Um, and I plan to write more coming from that area. I don't know when or how it will manage, but it's ingrained in me, and I just want more. Like, there's the southern romances that are out there are like horses and cattle and
Yeah.
farm. That's how I
Mhm.
grew up. Like, I'm
Yeah.
terrified of horses. I don't. They're big. I don't want to approach them. They're going to run me over. Like, that's my thought process. So I want more southern romances that just deal with, living a normal life, but in the South. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, we do some mud riding and we go outside barefoot all the time and just living that simple life, but it doesn't have to involve cows and
Mhm.
horses. So I kind of want to write more of that in the future. Um, Moving to Alaska. Okay. It's different in the sense of the weather,
Mm.
obviously.
Mhm.
Whereas it's like 105 degrees back home and like 100% humidity. Here it is probably like 60 degrees right now, maybe. Um, Low humidity when it's not raining. It's raining right now. Um, we have less than an hour of actual night happening right now. So just those types of differences has been wild. Absolutely crazy. But the small town feel is definitely still here. Like I go to Walmart now and see people I know after a year of living here. And it's crazy. It's like anywhere I go, I run into someone I know. And that feels like back home, but they don't know me from like, when I was 2, so it's nice. But I also I don't want to move here either. I love it. I adore Alaska.
That's a really big shift from 105 to 60 degrees. Oh my gosh.
It's nicer though. It's definitely what I wanted. I wanted a cooler environment, but I got my first sunburn a couple days ago because the sun actually came out, and I just went and sat in it and was like, fine, let me burn. I want to burn. I miss it.
Oh, that's so funny.
I could go back home for like a couple of days and just be on a hot beach instead of a cold beach. Life would be good. But then I know immediately I'd want to come back here. So
that's nice.
I'm gonna stay.
Yeah. To feel that way, that's a good feeling to have.
Yeah.
Do you think that you would ever write books set in Alaska now that you've lived there, or do you think you see yourself like sticking to just Southern?
No. So I am my where do I start? My friend joined Substack and started writing a cozy mystery romance on Substack, and it's set in Alaska. And I was like, that's a really cool idea. I kind of want to try that, and that way I can have readers and writers, if you read it, come in and like contribute to the story in the comments. Like say, like if you release it chapter by chapter, they can say, oh, I'd love to see this happen, or I wonder what's going to happen here. And so I'm kind of writing this story as I release it. And it's an urban fantasy rom-com. I blended the genres. I don't know what the technical name should be, but that's what I'm calling it. And it's set in Alaska. So
Cool.
yeah. So that whole series will be set in Alaska. It's gonna have like 6 books in it total.
Awesome. That sounds amazing. I feel like urban fantasy and Alaska just like go together.
Blend perfectly.
Yeah.
They do. Yeah, they do. This first one is a female pirate who's very much like female Jack Sparrow. And then a merman who is lives in the middle of Cook Inlet, which is one of our inlets here in Alaska. Yeah.
Oh, I love
from
that.
there, we'll have a vampire in one story. We'll have a werewolf. We'll have a mage, and we're gonna have a ghost. And I'm missing one. I can't remember, but it's okay. Anyway, so each one will deal with a different paranormal creature and a human.
Okay.
And it'll be in Alaska, and it'll be romantic comedy.
That sounds amazing. And you said this first one is already on Substack right now, part of it.
The first 2 chapters.
Okay.
Yes.
Definitely gonna go read that.
Yeah, I read the first chapter. I don't remember. I probably just like forgot that it was set in Alaska, because I remember the part that it was pirates and mermen, but I forgot that it was in Alaska. And I do remember. Maybe you didn't read it yet.
I don't think that I explicitly said Alaska. Like I said,
Cook
okay,
Inlet. Then that makes sense.
So if you don't know if Cook Inlet is in Alaska, so see, there's an editing note. That's why I'm doing it like this.
Yeah. See, then you
but
and Jenny have that in common. Sorry, what was that, Jenny?
I was gonna say I got the email for the second chapter notification a few days ago, and I was like, oh, I have to read that. But well, actually, we all have something in common, because Rachel also writes urban fantasy rom-coms.
Oh, yeah.
And I write serial stories, like, or I've written one. I don't know if I'm going to continue with it, but like on the platform, like obviously I'm going to continue this story, but like I don't know if I'm going to keep doing it as a serial story, but we'll see.
So I mean, it's fine though, right? Because I don't think we should ever have to feel confined to one genre.
Oh
Like
yeah, yeah,
I'm a big proponent of that.
yeah.
Mhm.
I agree. And I don't think the genres should have to stay separate from each other either. Like I think they should blend together. Why not?
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's fun and allows
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of creativity, and
Mm-hmm.
people like it.
Yeah. And you widen your readership because you're hitting more than one type of genre at one time. Like it's awesome.
Yeah, that's like my favorite thing about the indie market is so many
Mm,
people just take one thing and they put it with another thing, and I just love how many fresh original takes there are like out here. I mean,
yeah.
people putting things into one genre that would be in another genre, or just writing a certain genre with a different twist. Like I really appreciated in The
Mm,
Designated Friend the character of Hadley, because I feel like Christian romance, because
mm,
it's clean, it's uplifting, often neglects the fact that Christ called prostitutes and tax
mm,
collectors and sinners. And a lot of
mm.
times in a lighter read, that like gets neglected because you want to keep it clean, but you don't want to
Yeah.
go too deep. So, stories of redemption are more focused on like a more serious Christian read. And I
Mm,
just really appreciated having a character's redemption arc, or it's not
mm,
really redemption, just like her journey to finding God in a lighter book. Somebody who's
mm.
really made mistakes, but it's still fun and it's still clean. I really love that about it, and I'm going to put that in the review that I haven't written yet. So you guys are getting a little sneak peek of my review here. Um,
Thank you
yeah.
so much. That was fully my intention with
Mm,
writing Hadley. She is Designated Friend altogether is a special book to me. It's the book that I didn't intend to write. As soon as I finished The Politics of Christmas, I was going to start The Politics of Love. But I had this idea with Hadley and Braxton and the story, and it was, I don't know if I'll ever write a story that fast again. Like
mm,
how quickly I wrote that book,
mm,
how just it poured out of me. Because my life relates to a lot of what my characters battle.
mm,
The thoughts that they have. Hadley's just existence of, if all of this, bad stuff happens to me, all of these things have happened to me, where's God? Where is
mm,
he? And no one says that we can't make that humorous as well. I think
mm,
because I
mhm.
have I have very funny conversations with God all the time, and I
Yeah.
don't think it's disrespectful or that he
Mhm.
doesn't like me for it because he made me this way. So
Yeah.
that's what I tried to do. So thank you for saying that. It's just like, I like verification. That was good verification.
Yeah, that's what the thing I noticed, because my first book I read of yours was The Politics of Christmas.
Mhm.
And the first thing I noticed was that when the characters are praying, they joke with God. And I thought that's really fun. I love that they have such a close connection with him that they feel they can joke
Mm,
with him.
mhm.
Yeah. And then The Designated Friend, oh my goodness. Every time I came across another character, it just felt like there was so many opportunities for spin-offs and just like other people. I was getting so excited. I was like, "Ooh, is Drew gonna take this somewhere? Ooh, is there gonna be a book about this?" So it was just a great rom-com. Like, and that's what you kind of want in a rom-com. Like a lot of them are very
Mm,
like connected and you get to meet everybody. It's like a little community. You have a book
mhm,
for each couple, but they all kind of know each other or have
mhm.
cross paths or whatever. So
Yeah.
I'm excited for both series to continue
Mm.
for sure.
Thank you. Yes, The Politics of Love should be out this November. I plan on wrapping up this. It's technically my first draft, but it's
Mm.
actually my fourth draft. Because I've changed a lot of things through this book. It's
Mm,
been so hard to write. But it should be out in November, and hopefully following right on its heels will be The Designated Twin.
mm.
So,
Yeah. I think the
uh,
other thing I love about books like yours with all of these different kind of standalones is that every reader has the opportunity to find themselves in at least one of the main characters at some point, with them being so different, like with, one character having maybe like a harder backstory and someone who comes from more innocent background and someone who struggled with this, someone who struggled with that. I like that it gives readers an opportunity to see themselves, because that's always what I like in a book, is finding a character that I can identify with, that I feel like, oh, somebody sees me. And so I feel like that's just huge. And I think you're a very honest writer. You put yourself into your stories, which makes them feel so much deeper. And as a reader, it makes me feel more like, oh, I really connect with this person. I really connect with this character. I feel like that just adds a whole other layer to it.
Thank you. I accept compliments awkwardly as well.
Same.
But I love them. So thank you. Oh man, that's because that's been when I started writing, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I still don't know what I'm doing. I just write and hope it turns out nicely.
Yep. Yep. I think that's the key. Nobody knows what they're doing. We're all just fumbling around.
Yeah.
Oh man. Thank you.
So, what does your writing process look like? Like, are you more of a pantser? Are you more of a plotter? Does it depend on the book? I mean, maybe it's different every time you do it.
So, the Politics of Christmas, I tried to draft. I tried to outline, because I thought that's what I had to do. That was how I'm supposed to write a book. And it kept failing epically. And so I was like, forget it. I'm just going to write the story. And so I did. I sat down and I wrote the story. At first, I thought, oh man, this is going to be a novella because I can't get past like 35,000 words. I don't have any more in me. But after it went through developmental edits and stuff, I was like, oh, okay, this is how I bumped it up. And so thank you to my editor for that. She taught me a lot about just writing through her edits. She doesn't, well, I think she knows. I think I told her. But yeah, so that was awesome. Mad respect for her. And the designated friend, like I said earlier, I won't say I completely pantsed that one. I did a lot of just inspired writing, I guess. I knew what I wanted out of that story going into it. I knew how I wanted the ending. Like I knew it. I knew the plot points I wanted. So I never really had to jot it down. I just had to make sure I was making it flow right and keeping the dates right, pretty much for that one. I did use Romancing the Beat, that novel, or that writer book, self-help book. I don't know. Anyway, I used it before, like right as I started writing The Designated Friend, and as I was reading through it, I was like, well, I know what I want for all of this stuff already. So just kind of set it aside and I was like, all right, well, let's just write. The Politics of Love, I so far have just been pantsing it, which is probably why it's taking so long to write it, because it's a very complex story. The Politics of Christmas and the Politics of Love, they are marketed more as and geared towards more as sweet romance instead of rom-com, because of some of the deeper themes and not as much humor that is infused in these books, though it does have very much comedic relief moments and embarrassing things that happens to characters, because it's fun. We like that because it's relatable. And so but this one is, it's a little darker than the Politics of Christmas. There's a lot of inner. I've been watching a lot of K-dramas, and so I think I have infused the drama of Korean dramas into this novel and like the different twists that happen in it. But I love it and I'm all here for it and it flows and I like it. So I guess it's got a lot more just drama, not like catty girl, being mean drama, just like drama of life that happens in this story. And so I do have a notebook where I keep up with everyone's the different characters and their big storyline events, and then the big twist that happens at the end. Like, I have all of that prepped. But other than that, yeah, just pants it. And then the Designated Twin I've outlined. I've actually already outlined that book chapter by chapter. I have a paragraph of everything that I want to happen in those chapters. And so I'm hoping I'll be able to write it faster. Maybe. We'll see. It'll probably completely change.
Yeah.
I'm giving it a shot. So
Yeah, I feel like it's such a toss-up. Like for me, so my Kindle Vella serial story, I mean, I had the concept really well, and maybe that's what helped me, is because I had the concept so well, because I had to like market it as I was writing, but I really didn't have it super planned out. And it went so well. I mean, I ended up hitting the midpoint at about the midpoint and all the different beats at the right time. So I thought, oh, maybe I can pants. And then my book that I'm working on right now is historical fantasy. So first of all, I have like the different era that I'm working with, where I'm like, I have to be able to like really picture what's going on. And I started writing the first chapter, and I'm glad I did, because I feel like I got the tone of it. But then I was just so stuck, and I thought, you're going to have to go out and go do scene by scene, just something, because I just couldn't. I was like, I don't even know what's going on here. I don't know. And so it's just like, I never know. Like, every time I try and plot, it doesn't work. And then every time I try and pants, it doesn't work. So I don't know. Like,
I very much relate to that feeling.
I totally understand. I used to think I was a major plotter, and now I've realized that I do have to have an outline. Otherwise, I will just pretend that I have writer's block and can't write, and I'll stop writing for a while. But now I just do like the little 1x1 sticky notes per scene, and that's it. I don't outline more than that, because then I just bog myself down. But I feel like finding an outlining strategy, or like a planning strategy, I feel like you're always trying to figure it out as a writer. I don't know that anybody ever finds a groove that they really works for them always. I feel like it just depends on the book.
Yeah.
I like listening to have you guys ever joined one of Nadine Brandes and Sarah Ella's seminars?
I need to.
Yes, they talk a lot about it kind of comes up almost in every one that I've seen so far, about their writing methods. And Nadine seems to be very much like that. One book, she's like, oh well, I needed the point by point things that happen in the story, or I needed this date for an outline. And it varies book by book. But she's very much a pantser, pants down. She'll say that. But as I've been listening to her, it really made me realize, like, this is okay. This is normal. It's normal for every book to look different. It's normal for your writing style to evolve and to change.
Yes.
It's normal to not know exactly what you need for each book, because it's probably different than the other. I will say, though, what I did with the Designated Twin, going through writing a paragraph for each chapter, it's like I wrote the story. It's like I have draft 1 of the story finished. Is the way it felt when I was done. And it was, it was 10 pages long. Every chapter, the main events, how I want it to flow. And so now I'm like, I really enjoyed that. And I think I want to try to use that again in the future, because it's so helpful. I feel like when I go to pick up that story, when I finish TPOL and I go to pick up that story to start writing, it's already there. So
yeah,
hopefully that'll be my go-to method from now.
One thing I always try and keep in mind is just kind of like the thematic shifts, because like the beginning, I always compare it to Lord of the Rings. Like the beginning should feel like the Shire. That should be the mood. The middle should be call to adventure. So that should be like the best part of the story, like the camaraderie, the brotherhood, blah, blah, the most fun part of the story. And then right after the midpoint, like the tone needs to change. Like normally in a movie, like it'll get darker, like set will get darker, costumes will get darker, like everything gets darker, especially in like Marvel movies. Like you can always tell it's the midpoint, because like everything gets so dark. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh. And then, and then the end is kind of just like the triumphant. So I always like keep that in mind. Like that's huge for me, is like I feel like it's like a mood shift for me. But one of the things I really love using lately is so Emily Golden Edits on Instagram. She shared this like 9-point scene thing, and it's like goal, disturbance, new goal, disturbance worse, turning point, choice, reveal, what happens next, kind of a thing. So it's like, because for me, sometimes it's hard for me to think of my character's goals. Like I always forget that they need to have like a goal, even if it's just like getting breakfast. You know what I mean? So it just really helps me out, because for each, I do this normally with my like heavier books, like historical fantasy and stuff, where I'm so focused on like world building and characters, and I just put in like my character's goal, what happens that stops her, what's her new goal, and like that has been like life changing for me. And it's kind of the same thing as like writing a paragraph. Like it's not detailed, it's just like enough, you know.
I like that. And I'm thinking about like how to use that in a rom-com, because though you don't ever want to drag the mood to, complete darkness, right? But I think when the rom-coms, especially ones that have a lot of depth to them, with characters who might actually be struggling with some things or have events that happen to them, because it is still real life and hard things happen in real life. How we could apply that same method per scene, because I get lost in writing internal thought and description, I think, and that could probably, like, that outlining method could probably prevent that and keep my characters on goal a lot easier. So it's interesting to think about.
Yeah, no, I have the same problem. Like if I don't know what's going on, it just turns into like an inner monologue with the character where nothing happens. And I'm like, how do I get her to do something? And I have such a penchant for like really sweet, gentle heroines. Oh man, they're a pain to write because they don't do anything. And so, so they're very hard to write. It's so hard to write them. But I just love them so much. And the one I'm writing right now, she was originally like that, but now she's not. She's very like stubborn, and she has a sharp tongue, and she does not think before she speaks. And it's been such a joy to have a character like that, because it's so much easier to write the plot, because they just make stuff happen. They just make all these choices that you're like, doing, girl, and then they just ruin their lives themselves. And like,
That's so true.
I love that.
Oh, that's funny. I feel like finding like character motivations and their goals and their emotional growth and stuff, that's something I usually have a better time fleshing out in revisions versus the first draft. Because I always feel like in the first draft, I'm still getting to know them in a way. But by the time I get through the revisions, I know where they're going to end up. And I'm like, okay, this is the journey I need you to be on now, like emotionally, or these are the beats I need you to hit or whatever, versus in the first draft, it's harder to know why they do things versus after I've written the whole thing and I know them really well now.
I relate to that.
I think that's probably really different than me, because I don't think I can even start writing until my characters are like, they are like real people talking in my head. Like I was talking about how these people were talking in my head, and Rachel has to clarify that I'm a writer, I'm not crazy. But yeah, like they just like, I can see them like down to the last freckle, and they just like, I know how they talk. They're just so fully formed to me, and I just can't write into like that moment. And I think that's the thing with my Kindle Vella, is I had these 6 characters and I just knew them so well that the plot just kind of happened, because I was switching off between 4 very different people, and they just kind of ran with it,
See, that just goes to show you that writers are also different.
Yeah, I think I'm somewhere in between, because like I want to know them. I have a Pinterest board for them, but like they change as I write them, which is the discovery process of discovering them, especially with the politics of love. The way I have approached this novel with my characters is weird, and I hope it comes across correctly when people read it. But I have Hayden Bennett, my female, who is sunshine and joy and happiness and positive and uplifting, but on the inside, there's a lot of turmoil happening and darkness. When I have Darcy Marshall, my male, he is very much on the outside, you know, your typical Mr. Darcy character, right? He's aloof, cold, like standoffish to people, short speech, doesn't come across how it should all the time, very offensive to people, and he doesn't even realize it. But on the inside, it's because he is socially inept and he doesn't understand how to communicate appropriately with people. It's not that he's mad at the world, it's not that he hates people, it's he just doesn't understand how to socialize appropriately and to show affection appropriately. And so they're opposites of each other's outwards and each other's inwards. And so trying to portray that appropriately has been really hard, and it's made me have to discover them as I write versus trying to plan it all outside, because the change that they go throughout the story is just like so yeah, I feel like I'm somewhere in between with like character development. It's hard sometimes though.
But I will say, like, you know, because reading Rachel's book and reading your books too, Drew, like, it doesn't feel like either of you are like weaker in either character or plot. Like, no matter how you write, I feel like we all arrive at the same place because both of your books are really strong character-wise, really strong plot-wise. Like, you wouldn't know that you started with plot or started with character. Like, you wouldn't be able to tell, like, the behind the scenes, how the sausage is made from the finished product. And that's what I think is really amazing with authors, is that we start at different places, but we all end up like strong in all areas. Which is really cool.
Yeah, I love that. That's how it should be. I mean,
yeah. Good reminder that it doesn't matter what process you choose to get there, because it all ends up in the same place. So
oh, I am so excited to read this book now. Like, I love that that like trope of like the Mr. Darcy guy. It's like, I mean, that's like my fiance. He's definitely he's very truthful. That is one of he's always very truthful. So like, he's one of those people, like, you love him or you hate him. Like, there's like no in between. And I just love that about romance, because I love that character. And then I love in romance, you get like the opposite, you know, whether it's like they're on opposite sides of something or their personalities are opposite. And they just, when they come together, they change each other and they make each other better people. And I think that is what gets everybody, like, every time about romance. You know, you get to the end and they've both learned and grown so much because of each other. And it's just beautiful to see how their weaknesses and their strengths complement each other. And that's my favorite part of romance, is like, you have to figure out, like, I wouldn't call it the trope, it's kind of the trope, but that like polarity, you know. And once you have that between the two characters, I just feel like the romance writes itself.
Yeah. Well, opposites, I think opposites attract is a trope. But I also think that I don't know if I've ever read a romance where the two are, you know, completely the same. Because in real life, we need people who are different than us, because you know, it's like scripture says, iron sharpens iron, and we need to have someone who can push back against us and we can push back against them, while fully accepting each other, accepting the flaws, and encouraging each other to grow and in growth. So I think that is like just a theme that can be traced across any romance book, whether it's rom-com, contemporary, fantasy romance, dystopian romance. Like, we need that. Like, it's just part of our DNA in life, is to seek others out who are a bit different than us.
Mm.
Even if it doesn't have to be completely different. Hadley and Dawson, I
Yeah.
think I described them as two different sides of the same coin. They have a lot of similarities, but they're also different, and those differences push against each other and make each other better. So I think that is a beautiful statement to make about romance, because I think that's definitely one of the reasons I'm attracted to the genre as well.
Yeah. It's the spice of life. Like Rachel and I the other day were saying how different we were. Like even though in some ways we're so much the same because we're the same age, we come from very similar backgrounds, you know, like we're so similar. But then the genres we write, how we go about writing, how we market, like everything is just like so different. And it makes this podcast fun though, because then you get like two different perspectives on how to do the indie author thing, you know? And then we have people like you on, Drew, and then you're kind of similar to me, you're kind of similar to Rachel, you're kind of different to like both of us, and we get to hear your perspective, and yeah, it's just really fun. The spice of life.
Definitely.
Yeah. If you're not learning from other people and curious all the time, then what are you doing? How is that fun?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on today. Like I don't know, I was a little nervous about having guests. I just thought it was gonna be like a huge deal and stressful, but it's just so nice because I've known you for forever, like on Bookstagram, and it's just been really nice to just chat as friends and get to know you better.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for having me. This was really fun. I enjoy getting to see people and talk to people like face to face. Like I know you're actually alive on the other side of the screen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like people that I follow, I love both of your content, Jenny and Rachel.
Yeah.
I'm like, your reels that you make, and I'm like, I need to be more like them. The reels especially. Oof, I'm so bad at reels. But anyway, yeah, I love both your pages, your content, books. I have Rachel's rom-com sitting in my Kindle. I need to read it.
I'm saving it for Christmas. I might do Christmas in July, but I'm saving it for Christmas.
I think I'm doing Christmas in July. Jenny, do you have is all of your stuff only on Vella?
Yeah, it's on Kindle Vella right now. Honestly, I have mixed feelings about the platform, so I don't know if I'm going to continue on there. So, you know, I always tell people who want to read it, I'm like, look, if Kindle Vella is not your thing, don't worry. Like, I am going to take it off and publish it as a book. So you can wait for that. You know, you don't have to go and read it.
That's what I was going to ask.
Like, just wait. I'm going to publish it as an ebook and a physical book. And
okay. All right, good. Then I will wait impatiently.
I'll get going.
And thank you, Jenny, for helping to do the interview process, because Lord knows that I am also socially awkward. So the first 10 minutes would have just been us sitting here. So.
Well, I actually wasn't going to ask any questions. And then Rachel's like, do we have questions? And I was like, no, it'll just flow naturally. But I was like, maybe I can just think of some off the top of my head just in case. And I'm glad I did, you know.
Yeah.
Because I've been thinking about, you know how when you go through a conversation in your head after the fact? Well, I do the same thing, except I do it like before the fact. So I've been thinking about this interview coming up all week, and I'm just like imagining what we're going to talk about. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to ask Drew about writing rom-coms, and I'm going to ask her about being Southern and this and that and the other thing. So it's thanks to Rachel that I actually like wrote it down what I was thinking about, because that really helped.
Well, I was just thinking, I was like, if I went on somebody's podcast to be interviewed, I'm what I like to call an outgoing introvert. Like once you get me comfortable, I talk a lot, but it takes me a while to warm up. So if I was being interviewed by people that I hadn't seen face to face before and talked to physically before, I would be like, I don't know what to say. So I would need questions. So I was like, do we have questions?
Yeah.
So yeah, I was a bit nervous. I was a bit nervous because I never got a list of questions to prepare for, and I was like, okay.
I was gonna tell you. I was like, I should probably tell her that we're not gonna do like a list of questions, because I'm sure that's common. And then I'm so sorry I forgot to just let you know, hey, we just do a casual conversation, you know.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's standard procedure is you get like a list of questions and like the topic list. But Rachel and I used to do that, but I feel like it was never as good because we would write down like what we were going to talk about, bullet points. And I don't know, it wasn't as good. So, but yeah, if you guys are listening and you end up getting asked as a guest on the podcast, just know we don't have a list of questions. Like, we're just going to talk. We're going to chat. We're going to get to know each other, the Bookstagram community here.
No, but it was really good though, and because I'm very much like Rachel, like I'm very introverted, I'm very awkward, don't know what to say, always overthink what I'm saying. But if I get to know you and I get comfortable, I won't shut up. So
yes. Well, I loved like all your long, thoughtful answers. Like that was really nice that you really went into detail about everything we asked you about. That was really interesting.
Thanks. Yeah, I also have an issue with oversharing because I don't know what I'm supposed to share and what I'm not supposed to share.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
I identify.
It's a rough life we live, Rachel.
I know. People think that we're strange, but they're right, really, I guess.
They're right.
Yeah. It's okay. We have a community of weirds, so.
Yeah, and I feel like it's nice because a lot of times people will be thinking something or they know something about themselves, but they don't know that other people feel that way. And I think, you know, when you share something that makes you uncomfortable, sometimes it's because you shouldn't have shared it, but a lot of times it's just making you uncomfortable because you're vulnerable. And then I've had so many instances where I was nervous about something I said and people reached out to me and they're like, oh, I'm so glad you said that. So I think there's something to be said for sharing things that you're not sure should be shared because, you know, somebody might need to hear them.
It's very true.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. That's one of the things that keeps me going. It's okay. If you overshare, it's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
When people
you're not the only one. That's true.
And people forget in 5 minutes anyway. Like, you know. That's what I tell myself.
But yeah. And we'll have to have you on in the future too and talk about, you know, when your next books comes out and stuff.
Yeah. So election day is when Politics of Love is going to be releasing.
Oh, fun.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that.
Something positive to look forward to on election day.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's brilliant.
I'm gonna everyone's gonna be in their I voted stickers. I'll be like, I bought my copy of Politics of Love sticker.
Well, I do plan on making some Darcy for President stickers or something.
Oh, that'd be cute.
I voted Darcy. Yeah.
I like that.
Well, I'm so excited, and yeah, it's just been great because you know you can get to know people through Instagram and get all the hype, but I just feel like I know you so much better, and I'm even more hyped up for your book now that we actually talked in person, and I hope that everybody listening feels the same way too. You know, and even just listening to a conversation.
Yeah, and I appreciated getting to know you two more.
Yeah, it's nice to have a actual back and forth live interaction to back up the friendship that was already there. You're like, oh, okay, now I actually feel like I you know, kind of know you more now, and we're like, not that we weren't friends before, but now it's more solidified. So that's cool.
Yeah.
I love it.
Like friends.
Yeah.
So that's Rachel and I's mission now. We are slowly working through all the Bookstagram friends, one interview at a time. We will become friends with everybody out there.
I love this, and thanks so much for allowing me to be your first guest. I feel so honored.
Thank you
We're
so
honored
much
to have you.
All right. Well, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Happy writing. If writing is on the table for you, happy reading. If that's there too. And yeah, we'll see you on Instagram, and we will see you next time in another interview later on.
Yes. Thank you so much. You ladies have a wonderful afternoon, evening, rest of your lives until I see you again.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed it, and tune in next week for another episode. And if you enjoyed it, please consider leaving a review so that other people can find us, and we will see you in the future. Bye.